Today I'm using a square glass thing.
Yeah, you're going to sound totally terrible.
So let's do this. Guys, I am so excited that you are here for the very first ever edition of Blossoms and Bourbon. Blossoms and Bourbon is something I've been thinking about for a while, and I'm super excited to share with you two things that I really enjoy and am passionate about. And one of those, of course, is flowers. And if you know me, you know that flowers are an important part of my life. The second is bourbon. And if you know me, you also may know that I enjoy bourbon every now and then as well. So the format is going to be every episode we're going to do a floral technique, a design, something of that nature. And then in the second part of the video, we're going to do a bourbon tasting. And we're going to do a different bourbon every time. Some of which I've had before and some of which I've not. So it should be fun. I hope that we'll all learn something together. Today, what I want to do is, so many people have asked me about teaching classes before and just sharing some of my knowledge and experience. And one of the things that people often ask me is, when I get those little bouquets at the grocery store, what do I do with them? How do I make them look good? And I think, first of all, an important thing that you have acknowledged by the fact that you buy flowers at the grocery store is that you love flowers and that you want to keep them around you, and that's super important. So I applaud you for that. And I think that's one thing that the grocery store is really good at is, you know, it's a quick and easy way to get flowers. But what we don't want to have happen is this when you get home, because that doesn't look like it should. So I went to the grocery today and picked up this pretty little bundle, and we're going to talk about how to kind of work through it to make it look like a pretty arrangement, something that you would enjoy having at home on your table in your kitchen or whatever. So the first thing that we're going to do is just kind of open it up, see what we got in here. This looked like a pretty nice bundle actually, and it was very colorful, so of course I like that. So it even had a little hydrangea in it. We've got some alstroemeria, some greenery. That's also nice because they don't often come with a lot of greenery. We've got some mums, a calla lily, which is also nice. Some little miniature carnations, little dianthus. That's pretty sweet. Regular carnation, another mum, some more greenery. Perfect. This is going to be great. This one even had, for seasonal use, some little cattails in it. So that's going to be pretty sweet. One thing that you're going to hear me talk about a lot in these videos is mechanics, because in the world of flowers, mechanics are super important. It kind of is the foundation of how the arrangement goes together. It's an important aspect of how it holds together. So today we're going to be using this square vase. Thanks, Jason. And this cube is a great way to start because it's low. We're going to be making a design that's sort of tight and compact. So it's not going to be super challenging. It's going to be good for a beginner, somebody who is just starting out with flower design. And if you can see on the top of this, there's this little grid of this clear plastic tape. And we kind of cheat when we do that in Flower World, but you just put the tape on the container, you create a little grid with it like that, and the little grid, you're probably way ahead of me, is going to help hold the flowers in place. And what I'm doing now is just going around it to make sure that we hold all those little individual pieces in place, okay? So let's just start out with some flowers. I work with a design knife. A lot of people work with clippers. It really is whatever you're comfortable with. Either will work just fine. So something like this has a lot of interesting breaks in it, and that's what these little individual pieces are called. So we're gonna actually work to make this do double use. We're gonna trim it, and we'll get 2 insertions out of that one stem of flowers. So it's gonna go a little bit further. You notice something else I was doing is cleaning all the greenery and the foliage elements off the bottom of the stems. The reason I do that is because if all that's left below the level of the water, it's gonna create a giant mess. and the water will get ooky. You've seen that happen. You've smelled it happen. It's terrible. It will cause the flowers to die much faster. So it's not something that you really want to have happen. So take a little extra time when you're working with your flowers to make sure that all the foliage is cleaned off the bottom, okay? So just do a little snip there. Let's get this one over here on this side. Let's go back to this greenery. I was a little bit surprised that there was this nice greenery in this bundle today. The greenery can do a couple of things too. Not only is it going to add another texture and another element to the flowers, but it's also going to kind of help support the flowers. So I pulled out some extra greenery too that I had here at the shop today that we might use. Yeah, it happens at the grocery store. Sometimes the flowers are gone, but just a little snip and we can get rid of that. Now you have a perfectly good stem, okay? So don't get rid of that. And yes, in Flower World, we just throw our stuff on the floor, like our knives, and the leaves and the flowers, and it just happens that way. All right, give that carnation a little fluff. So basically what I'm doing is just adding flowers. I'm kind of working around the outer edge of the container first, and then I'm going to go back and fill in the center. I'm using flowers primarily that have multiple breaks to them, multiple laterals, so that what that's going to do is it also helps create a grid to kind of help support the other flowers. So that's also a really easy way to start out with design, is make the flowers work for you. Okay. So you can see in the container how those stems are kind of lacing through each other, kind of creating a grid and a network. That's all part of helping to support the flower arrangement together. Okay. I didn't like how tall that was, so we're going to change that. And actually with your first couple of insertions, you probably would, in most cases, determine the overall size of the arrangement, how tall it is, how wide it is, just with those first couple of flowers that you put in. This little purple status is kind of random in there, but I like it. Are you guys familiar with Alstroemeria? Alstroemeria is amazing. I honestly call it the grocery store flower because you see it so commonly at the grocery store, but it is a wonderful flower because it holds up so well. It lasts forever. All right. The calla lily is a little bit more of a special flower, so let's kind of put that in a place of prominence up front so that you'll notice it. Same with the Gerber daisy. Has this little protective straw on it to kind of keep the stem from being crushed or bent during shipping and things like that in the grocery store. There we go. Let's see. I'm going to grab a little bit of this. This is called Florida Ruscus or Israeli Ruscus, and it's one of my favorite things because it's going to make a nice little collar of dark green around the edge of the container. This glass cube that we're working in. Let's see, we're coming down the home stretch here, people. This is pretty quick, pretty simple, but an easy way to put together some pretty flowers. There's a tiny little bit of a space back here. Again, depending on the size of the bouquet that you buy at the grocery store, you may have wanted to start with a smaller container. This would probably not be a grouping that I would use in a tall container unless you had two of them, just because I feel like it would need more volume to work in a taller vase. But since this was part of our purchase, let's go ahead and use this too. And I hope that you guys will feel free to comment on this video so I can learn what it is that you do and what you prefer as you're working with flowers. We can learn from each other, okay? All right, so. All right, cattails, last piece. So I tend to be somebody who's a little off center. I like things asymmetrical. I don't always like, you know, when you do the mantle at home and one candlestick on each side, not a fan. So I'm probably going to take these 4 cattails and do something that's asymmetrical with them. A little tall. I was doing a demo once for a group and this guy said, "Why is it that you cut those flowers 2 or 3 times?" And I said, "Because you can't put the stem back on after you cut them. So if I'm not sure, then I'll cut them once and cut them twice and maybe do it that way." So there we go. That's grocery store bouquet in a quick and pretty simple design for your kitchen table. Don't fret about making it extra special. Don't fret about, just enjoy the fact that you have beautiful flowers in your home. Okay, thanks so much for being here for that part of it. And as we kind of segue into like what happens at the end of the day in the old flower world, let's talk about bourbon. And for this part of the video, I wanted to feature one of my favorite bourbons, and it's called Michter's. And I hope I'm saying that right, because I always feel like I kind of struggle with that a little bit. Michter's is actually, it's called a Kentucky straight bourbon, but it actually was started in Pennsylvania by a Mennonite farmer. So I found out, which I found kind of cool. And at some point in the progression of the company, they relocated to Kentucky. And while in Kentucky, one of the owners, and I think it was the 1950s, had 2 sons. One son was named Michael, the other son was named Peter. And so Michter's is the combination of Michael and Peter's name together, which I found kind of a cool way for you to get the name of your bourbon. I will also tell you, in full disclosure, that I am not a professional bourbon taster. I know what I like. I know when I enjoy something. I know when I don't. But I'm not going to be able to discuss with you all those, you know, cinnamon notes on the nose and all those kind of things that you might hear with different kind of scenarios for tasting. This is just going to be me talking about what I like and what I don't like. So I will tell you that because I've tasted Michter's before, that it is one of my favorites and I do enjoy it. One of the things that in bourbon tasting I learned on a recent trip to Kentucky is that when you smell it, you should smell it with your mouth open, which I found kind of interesting. So not just with your nose, but also with your mouth open. And your mouth open kind of enhances the aromas, gives you a better experience with the actual smell of the whiskey. This is not a particularly dark whiskey. Some of them are super dark in terms of color. I do tend to like the warmer colors in bourbons, but let's have a sip. Yeah. See, this is one of my favorites, and it's a favorite because of that. It's just a very easy bourbon to sip. There's a little bit of heat at the back of your throat, maybe as you're finishing off the taste, but boy, it's sure good. If you're somebody that doesn't like that heat, then you may want to try adding a big ice cube to this so you just kind of cool it off a little bit. And I do enjoy bourbon chilled, so I think sometimes an ice cube in this is perfect, but I don't think it gets a lot better than this. Michter's is a great one to try. They have a rye, they have a sour mash, a couple of different really interesting ones, and then getting up into the pricier tiers, you've got some aged varieties. They have 10 and 20-year bottles, so I encourage you to give it a try. So guys, thank you so much for coming by today. I'm super excited that we have now finished the first ever edition of Blossoms and Bourbon. I hope that you'll sign up and come back and join us again for the next edition. Thank you so much.